All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today, I have a little bit more of a challenging situation. I flirted with it before, and I got some pretty aggressive negative feedback when I spoke publicly about Tyshawn Jones switch ollieing this picnic table. But recently, the channel... my YouTube channel, it's been a little bit on the safer side. It's been a little bit more mellow than usual. So I'm going to come at one of the guys that you're not allowed to come at. In skating, we have people you can trash. Nyjah, we can trash Nyjah till the cows come home, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that skaters are pretty hypocritical in some sense, where we act like we're regulators. We hold each other to a high standard, but in reality, I think that when it comes to the cool guys or the cool skaters, nobody wants to say anything because it's just like an unwritten rule that we have an established group of people that you can poke fun at, and then there are certain people that are untouchable and can do no wrong. I got a ton of shit on Twitter from people when I even brought this up. Walker Ryan, I think, brought it up on Twitter too, and people were calling him racist for even approaching this situation. And after all, this is the entire point of my YouTube channel. Recently, I've just been memeing my ass off because that's easier than talking about these things publicly, but I'm just going to do it anyway because I've been thinking about this for a while. I know this is late news, but SOTY's in full swing at the moment. And I think that this is a pretty important piece of information that needs to be cataloged and examined because Tyshawn is one of the front runners at the moment. And I think that this switch ollie is pretty concerning. I think this switch ollie is kind of a pretty significant problem. So let's take a look at the clip. See him rolling up. Okay, popping over the front and then over the end. Okay, so what's the problem with that? Well, first of all, let's just discuss the angle that this is filmed from. The angle is very suspicious, okay? For an iconic switch ollie over a table long ways, you would think that you would get to see it from more than one angle. Yes, he's ollieing really, really high. I have no question about that. This entire video part is exceptionally impressive. Tyshawn is a really good skater, but that doesn't mean that he's infallible or we are not able to criticize him under any circumstances. I think skateboarding has a problem with that. People just cover their ears and close their eyes when their favorite does something that's questionable. So what's the problem with this? Well, first of all, I think that he's clearly comes off to the side of the table. I'll try to prove that later, but just so that you guys, we're all on the same page, nobody's confused. Let's look at this Diego Najera kickflip over a picnic table long ways, because to say that you cleared a picnic table long ways, I think means something pretty specific. Okay, so you can see on his ascent when he's popping, you can see the left corner of the table here and the right corner of the table here. He's going in the very center, okay? Corner, corner. He's clearly in the middle of it. There's no question about it. And this angle is filmed from such a place where that is evident. It's not exactly straight on, but it's pretty close. It's definitely close enough. Then you can see on his descent, there's the corner of the table. There's the corner of the table. He's squarely over the center of it. There is no question in my mind, based off of this angle, that he cleared it front to back. This is an honest angle. I think he did the trick correctly. I don't think there's any bullshit in this situation. I don't think there's any attempt at deception. I think it's pretty cut and dry that he kickflipped over the top of this. Tyshawn also kickflipped over the top of the table from a front angle. It's filmed on an iPhone. I just don't know where it is right now, so I'm using Diego's. My theory is that he popped somewhere kind of in front of it, maybe off to the side, but I think that it's pretty clear that he did not clear the back part of the top of the table. Let me just show you guys something that I think is important. I'm going to draw this in black. This is going to represent the top of the picnic table, the highest part of the table, the tabletop. Okay, then in gray, I'm going to draw the seating area right here, which is lower. Okay, this is going to represent the benches on either side of the table. So we're looking at a picnic table from the top down. Something that is important to note, and it's extremely obvious, we all already know this, but I'm just going to do it so everybody's crystal clear. In terms of height, I'm going to give the tabletop a height of, let's say, 5. And then the seating area, I'm going to give that a height of 2. These aren't actually, tied to any specific numerical equivalent. I'm just trying to get across that the tabletop is higher than the bench, okay? And then in terms of distance, let's say it's 20. The tabletop and the bench is the same. They're both pretty much 20. So the tabletop has a height of 5. The bench has a height of 2, okay? So what's crucial about the way that Diego did his kickflip, he started here. He popped here, and he ended here. So when he travels from this area to this area, what's happening? He's traveling for a height of 5 over a distance of at least 20. That is what this obstacle poses. That is why it is difficult to clear a table long ways, because you have to think about it. It's not only about distance, it's also about height, but more specifically, it's about maintained height. It's not like anybody would care if Tyshawn just laid a tape measure on the ground and said, look, guys, even though this is totally flat, look, here's inches on the tape measure, I ollied a distance of 20, which is equivalent to the distance of a table. That would be significantly less impressive because he doesn't have to maintain a height of 5 the entire time. Okay, so that cross section right here, this is 5 by 20. Are we all clear on that? Does that make sense? That's what Diego did. What happened with Tyshawn's? Well, let's take a screenshot of this right now. Bang. Okay, this is the frame in which Tyshawn pops over the table. So where is he popping from? Well, you can see this black line on the ground running parallel to the outside of the bench. I can actually create a perfectly straight line. I'm going to say it goes from here, and I'm not exactly touching, but it's very close. Let's say that's the outside of the table. Does that make sense to everybody? You can see where Tyshawn is popping from, and then we can also put it over here, and we can create that same straight line. This line is that line. Okay, where's Tyshawn popping from? Well, the angle's really fucked up, so I would say that it's very difficult to know for certain. But if this line represents the outside of the lowest part of the table over here, then his trajectory is probably roughly, it's hard to know. I'm going to do Tyshawn in green right now. It's probably somewhere around here. This is probably where he starts his ollie. Again, you can't know for certain, but I'm being kind of generous maybe with this placement too. I'm not sure. It could be a little bit more in. It could be a little bit more out. But it's starting somewhere over here. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say he at least cleared this initial part of the table. These two goalposts right here, this corner and this corner, I think he at least started inside those goalposts. The ascent isn't even really the most crucial part, as long as he kind of started in front of the table. I mean, hypothetically, it really doesn't matter if you go in the middle or the side, as long as you're clearing the entirety of the top of the table here with your 5 by 10, then that's really what matters. If he starts here, it's still conceivable that he would do the trick correctly, right? That he would do the trick in the way that I think they're kind of trying to play it off as if he did do the trick. Let's take a look at where he lands now, because that's the next important part of this. So he pops here. This is the frame where he lands. I mean, I realize some people are going to hate this entire video and they're going to think that this is a waste of time. But in my opinion, in the context of going for SOTY and getting a Thrasher cover for an NBD over an iconic obstacle, to me, this is kind of important and has the potential to affect the outcome of SOTY. If we create this red line, again, from here, not exactly touching the table, but very close, to here, I think that gives you a pretty good indication of exactly where he lands, right? You can see his wheel is overlapping with this red line. So this red line from the top angle, if this is where he lands and this is on the outside of the lowest part of the table, his back truck is over here somewhere. Okay, so let's bring up the drawing I did initially from where he starts, and let's take a look where I said he begun, right? Which was somewhere over here, okay? From this area, this is the start, and this is where he ends. Is that kind of fair? Let's look at, if he starts here and he ends here, What does that line look like? His wheels hit this red line, so it has to be somewhere over here. An angle like this, it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but the amount of time that Tyshawn has to maintain that height of 5, like I showed in the beginning, is significantly shorter than it were he to start in the middle here and end in the middle here. I think by that logic, kind of invalidates this trick. I hope that makes sense. However, if that's not enough for you, I understand. I have more evidence. Yeah, this is going to progressively become more unhinged. I hope that's no problem for anybody. We're going to look at shadows, okay? If those lines really didn't convince you, if you think I'm full of shit, then I understand. That's okay. I'm not going to take it personally. Let's start by looking at the picnic table. The picnic table is here. The shadow for the picnic table is back here. That means the sun is shining from the front, it is hitting the object, and it is casting the shadow behind the object. We're all inhabitants of planet Earth. We are all familiar with this rule, right? That the sun hits something and the shadow is cast behind that object. You can even see that with like the baseball cage back here, a pole, and then here's the shadow that pole is casting. Again, here in the front, shadow behind. Pretty basic shit. Here's Tyshawn getting ready to pop. There's his shadow directly behind him. How is this relevant? Well, in this image, there are static shadows and there are dynamic shadows. The static shadows are created by the objects in the image that are not moving. So the picnic table, a tree, whatever. There are certain shadows in this image that will be in the same place the entire time. Tyshawn is a moving element in this scene. So when there's a moving object, it creates a moving shadow. So you can look around here on this picnic table, on the edges, there are no shadows whatsoever. It's just fresh, untouched plastic in all of these areas. But when Tyshawn starts his descent, what happens? He creates a shadow on this side of the picnic table. 1 second, there's no shadow. Next second, there is a shadow. And you can see this is on the outside of the table. See, here's this line, they meet at the corner, and here's the outside of the tabletop. Let me show you one last little diagram here before we can all go take a bath and decompress after this. This pole, here it is, and then here's the shadow that is being created by this pole. Object in front, shadow behind. The problem with the shadow that Tyshawn creates, which the shadow is located on the top of the picnic table on the side, here is the corner, we can see that, right? Which means the shadow is somewhere over here. Yes? The problem with that is, had Tyshawn gone from here to here, like this, with every shadow hitting the front and then being cast behind, were Tyshawn in this area between this corner and this corner, with every shadow pointing in this direction, it's impossible that he could be here while casting a shadow right here. Does that make sense? Were Tyshawn here, his shadow would be cast behind him in that direction. The only explanation for there being a shadow here means that in this image, Tyshawn is probably somewhere over here, okay? So, one more time, let's run this back and make totally certain that that makes sense. He's here, there's no shadow. Every shadow is being cast behind the object in this image. There's a shadow being cast on the side of the top of the table, which means he did not clear the table like this. He didn't do it. He went something like this. That is the only possible explanation for how he has created a shadow on this side of the table. Let's take a look at everything that we've worked on so far. Let's look at the shadow being cast over here, and then we'll put that shadow, I'll draw that in pink, right over here. If Tyshawn traveled from here to here, like this, I think that shadow being cast behind him on this part of the table supports my initial theory that this is where he started and this is where he ended. If I'm missing something massive, if I'm mistaken, which is possible, I am not some kind of ballistics expert or anything like that, but this makes sense to me. So that's my final theory, is that Tyshawn started here and ended here again, which means that this is the amount of time, more or less, or maybe it's something like this, that he actually traveled over the high part of the table, which is represented by the number 5, the highest part of the table. I don't think that Tyshawn's switch ollie is what he claims it to be. That is my final theory. I think this angle is bullshit, and I think the trick is incomplete. I think switch ollie over a picnic table from front to back is still open. I think it's still on the table. Bruh. I will say Atiba posted a photo of him back there today. I saw it on Instagram. So it's possible that he's going back to do this again, or he's going back to do another trick. I have no idea. I have no information about that. All that I know is that in this clip, based off of what I have illustrated to you guys, he did not do it. I hope this makes sense. It makes sense to me. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll have a skate park review later this week for you guys. Peace.